Okay, we've got here a video of two United States Navy Ticonderoga class cruisers. They are Aegis cruisers, and they are the battle stars of the fleet. Each of these ships carries 128 vertical launch missile cells in an Mk-41 launcher with 64 cells forward, and a second launcher with 64 cells aft. It also carries two 5-inch guns, or 127 millimeter guns, which are capable of shooting long-range projectiles. This was displayed in the, I believe it was 2016 or 2017, I believe, RIMPAC exercises, where I'm trying to remember whether it was the Bunker Hill or the Mobile Bay that shot 27 of those projectiles out of the 5-inch guns. They have a range of about 40 miles when they do that. Otherwise, their range is more like 15 miles or 20. Now, these ships also carry two Mark II 25 millimeter weapons that you can see right here. We'll see if we can zoom in on. There they are. They can either be fired manually or automatically. And you also notice it has a second 5-inch gun, just like the first one, aft in the rear. Also, canister launchers for Harpoon missiles, which may well be replaced soon by the Joint Strike Missile made by the Norwegians, which is a longer range, smarter, newer missile that we are putting on the LSC ships, or LCS ships, the Littoral Combat Ships, LCS, as well as the new FFGX. The decision on the FFGX will be made in 2019, this year or next year. And again, these new missiles are longer ranged, they're smarter, and they also fit nicely inside the F-35C and F-35B, and I'm sure will fit in the F-35A. So these ships are, even though they're a little older, are probably still the most efficient and combat-worthy ships throughout the world. And that's because the Aegis system is constantly upgraded. These guys carry the latest Aegis. The two that I have here is the CG-73, which was the last one built, the Port Royal. It was commissioned in 1994. And over there you see the 64, which is the USS Gettysburg, which was commissioned in the late 80s. These ships will probably have a 45-year lifespan, so each of them has 20 or more years left in them. And that's a good thing, because we need them. The United States has 22 of these ships. They contain command spaces to command the entire defense of any task force that they're attached to. And particularly that means carrier strike groups, Amphibious Ready Groups, Amphibious Expeditionary Units. And what that cooperative engagement means is that this Aegis ship can take control of any other ship so equipped and use its extremely lethal and advanced battle management system to control the missiles and guns and weapons of any of those vessels in the defense of the task force, whether it be a carrier or an amphibious group with a LHD and LPD and LS, landing ship dock, LSD, and the thousands of Marines that go with it. Typically, you'll see at least one of these in a Marine group, Depending on the conditions, you'll see one or two of them with a carrier group. If it is a high threat level, you'll probably see two of these ships with a carrier group, one of them designated as the primary defender and the second one as its backup. And then there will probably be 3 Aegis cruisers with that, each Aegis, excuse me, not Aegis cruisers, Aegis destroyers with that. And each of the Burke destroyers carries 96 missiles. Each one of these carries 128, plus the 8 in the back, so 136 missiles to defend the task force. Also, you'll notice that there is a hangar that can carry 2 Seahawk helicopters, and those helicopters are there for anti-submarine warfare defense as well as search and rescue and missions where it's a patrol mission looking for enemy vessels, and of course particularly submarines. But each one carries 2, and that's important because the 2 can then both shuttle their helicopters when they find a contact and not have to lose contact to send their helicopter back to get fuel and get weapons. So these are Ticonderoga class cruisers, important vessels. The United States will ultimately, probably in the 2020s, come up with a new design for the CGX that was meant to be the Zumwalt vessel hull, and still may be. That hull was degraded, taken from 31 vessels for the DDX, which was going to be the next destroyer, and they ended up only building 3 of them. They had a 155 millimeter gun, a 6-inch gun, and they had a rail gun and the energy and electricity to utilize it for several roles. And the Obama administration canceled the at-sea test that was scheduled in 2017, and we're hoping, of course, that President Trump or some future president will bring that back and get those rail guns operating on the 3 Zumwalts, and then make an important decision to take that hull and design the next cruiser around it, hopefully with 144 missiles with the peripheral launch, meaning that each of the missile launchers, rather than grouped all in one place like this, and the rear, they would be grouped around the entire peripheral of the vessel with 8 to 16 cells in any one place, ensuring that a hit on one of those areas doesn't cause a massive explosion or put out of commission that MK-41 and thus half the missiles. Right now, though, we've got these 22 cruisers, and they are loaded for bear, and they're packing. And we're glad we have them, because the Chinese have just developed their equivalent, if you will, vessel, the Type 55, and you can find that vessel and its video on my channel, and you can compare the two. In fact, in that video, I believe we have a comparison shown. The important thing about this is not only the cooperative engagement, which we have not seen from anyone else outside of US allies that have been given it, but we haven't seen it from any of our potential aggressors. In addition, these cells are much smaller than the cells that are used by the Russians or the Chinese. Some will say that that's important and a big plus for the Russians or the Chinese because they can have larger missiles. Another possible explanation is that they haven't perfected the micronization of these weapons systems the way the United States has, because the United States MK-41 and the peripheral launch VLS allow these ships to shoot several types of weapons. Anything from a Tomahawk land attack cruise missile to a tactical Tomahawk missile that can be programmed to either attack ships or ground targets, and at ranges from anywhere from 500 to up to 1,200 miles. That's important stuff. A lot of people say that, well, they have to depend on satellites to do that, and they do, but the United States has also now developed a backup to that using the Triton UAV that can cruise for a day and a half to 2 or 3 days at 75 to 80,000 feet, and give the U.S., as long as it's got the communications and they are situated in the right places, they can give the U.S. a secondary data comm path for the precision guidance that the satellites would otherwise provide. In addition, those Tritons can themselves target vessels or other targets, and they can communicate directly with ships, bases, all the way down to the P-8 Orion ASW maritime patrol aircraft. So that's an important development that the United States has. In addition, each one of those single cells on the vertical launch system here can be loaded with up to 4 Evolved Sea Sparrow missiles. Very important consideration, because the Evolved Sea Sparrow missile has a maximum range close to 50 miles. And that provides a layer of defense, and quite frankly can provide a lot of them when you consider the almost 500 or just over 500 weapons that a carrier task force will carry. They can carry several hundred more than the number of cells, because they can put 4 ESSMs into each cell. Then any type of standard missile, everything from the normal ranged 80 to 100 miles to the extended range 150 to 200 miles to the ballistic missile interceptors, all 3 of those standard missiles can be loaded. The ballistic missile interceptor is capable of going up into near space and knocking down ballistic nuclear missiles launched at the United States or its vessels or other targets. And those have a very extensive range as well. So this is a very important vessel, and the Burkes can do the same with their 96 cells, and it gives the United States unprecedented capabilities in terms of attacking. Right now, the lead ship in that is the Ticonderoga Cruiser. It weighs in at 10 to 11,000 tons, and they are very, very capable ships. No enemy or friend of the United States takes these ships for granted. Our friends are glad to have them with them. Our enemies respect them for their capabilities. So, thanks for looking. These are 1/350th scale ships built by Minimart, which is, I believe, a wholly owned subsidiary of Trumpeter. And you can find them at online stores as well as eBay and other such places on the web. And well worth your while if you're into 1/350th scale ships. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you later. This is Jeff Head. Bye-bye.